300-pound gorilla in this discussion. Maybe it's an 800-pound gorilla. Matt
Maybe
Bonnie
I should have started.
represents. And Diane Fortini, who's not here, local association actually includes 6 states. So it's a very interesting group. MABRA, I wanted to go through a little bit of history because my history with MABRA could be very close to some of the local associations who are having troubles in getting officials programs going and that sort of thing. Before 1990, when I came to Colorado to become a Category 1, now Category A official, there were single-digit officials in my area. The area was slightly different at that point, but there were still almost no officials. And I came out here, and there was one chief referee, and that happened to be me for most of the late 80s. And I came out here to Colorado and proceeded to whine a little bit about that. And Beth Estes was one of the people I whined to, and if you don't know Beth, it's probably not a good person to whine to, because Beth asked me what the hell my problem was. And I said, well, I explained it to her. My problem is we don't have any officials. And she says, I repeat, what the hell is your problem? And she says, go home, create a program, get officials. So this is the result of Beth's mentoring. So, and her declaring it an absolute no whining zone in Colorado, and so I went out and created the program. In Washington, the Washington, D.C. area, which is MABRA. MABRA, by the way, includes all of Maryland, Delaware, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. So kind of the Washington, D.C. suburbs of Virginia. That's an extremely transient area. If I don't bring in at least 10 new officials a year, the program starts to collapse on itself. So it's really important that I do significant recruitment. I've tried lots of different things. We've come up with lots of different ideas. The one that seems to have stuck is the carrot of providing team points for the best all-around team competition to some officials, although Stefan Yancha's club, who doesn't put on any races and doesn't have any riders, he has most of the officials, so that didn't work too well. But it is a motivation for some of the clubs and teams to supply new officials to us. Whether they stay around or not remains to be seen. Once we do the Cat C clinic, we have come up with an on-the-job training system. We pay the officials even for their first race experience, which is just an extension of Sean's PowerPoint presentation on Cat C. Only they get to actually do some scoring and that sort of thing. And we try to get them together as a group of 3, 4, 5 officials on the line and have somebody there essentially operating a separate crew. Where they're being trained in what they have to do. And then we have 1 or 2 apprentice events, depending on how the official's going, where they're on full pay, but they're an extra person on the crew, and MABRA is paying all of these fees. And I've tried to accept feedback on all of these little nuances of the program, and we tweak it every year. It's not a constant thing. It's continually modified. We also have a new chief referee program. We have a group of people coming through the B modules at this point, and we want them to be productive chief referees. And we actually provide them with backup on their first race. And that's a paid senior official that's going to be at the event to help them. At some points, these are also the people doing that on-the-job training for the brand new officials, but we try to make sure that that a new chief referee isn't thrown out there based just on the modules and that sort of thing. So our current status is we have an active official of the year program. We do it a little bit differently than some other areas. in that only Category B and C officials are eligible to become Official of the Year. And the decision is made by an excellent matrix that Steve Stone created for us using his, well, you already heard Steve talk, so you understand. but a very logical way of looking at the people and making sure that we get the best people in the quote competition. The goal is to recognize growing talent within the region, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that. We run between 35 and 40 active officials a year is where we want to be, and between 400 and 500 official days a year. Depending on how you count some of the folks on the borderlines, we have between 7 and 10 Cat A officials as part of this group, and another couple on their way for the next Cat A clinic. And we've have 9 Category B officials at this point, and 5 of them are already qualified as chief referees and coming up very quickly. So we also have 15 active motor referees. One of the ways that we help handle that program is that MABRA pays 50% of the motor referee insurance fee, which we feel is very important and gets the cost down for the promoter. They're literally used in all of our road races, circuit races, time trial, almost all of the time trials, and most of the criteriums as well. So we have a lot of motor referees out there, and but it's a big advantage because we have them available. So, Bonnie, that's the go forward. Go forward is on the right.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Bonnie Walker, and as Steve mentioned earlier, there's a variety of hats that we wear. So in this presentation, I am wearing the hat of the local association. Like Jim said, I'm representing TexBra, and we encompass Texas and more of Texas. One of our more challenging things to encounter because our state is so big. In our officials program, very similar to what Jim has talked about, very similar to what we'll review for the NEBRA program for Diane. Actually, I put a picture of somebody who's here, so Brian, little notoriety for you. But the way that I'm not going to give you a history of it because we kind of used to go from having races with like this one chief ref would start it and we'd get to the finish and that same person would then be wearing the chief judge hat. But I think since TexBra came into conception, we've been able to build our crews a little more successfully and help our race directors understand the importance of having more and more officials out there and what their roles were. So we use the official scheduling website, which I know a lot of the local associations actually use. It was actually originally built, I believe, for NEBRA. Is that correct, Jim? Okay. For NEBRA, but it's a great way if you're not using it, pull up one of us aside. We'll be happy to share the information with you, but it's a really good way to get the race information out there, what the dates are. You can get them out there early, you can add them throughout the year, and then the officials have a one-stop shop of where they need to go to indicate their interest in actually participating in that event. The key thing we tell them is just because you sign up and say I'm available, that doesn't necessarily mean you're on the crew, but at least allows us to build the crews and try to, I guess, spread the wealth a little bit, which is what I try to do from a Texas perspective. So when I'm looking at the crew, one of the things I'm looking at is what type of race is it? How many motors do we need? Do we need motors? Is it complicated? Do we need to assign perhaps like 2 chief judges just because of the nature of the event? How many categories are going to be out on the course at the same time? How many officials we're going to need in cars? We look at the personality, and this is kind of a key thing, and I believe, Steve, you were the one who actually touched on this too, is that to make a successful race, you got to have a successful crew of officials, and having those personalities that kind of come together and work well, bring talents, bring their skills, trying to incorporate in the newer people without making them feel overwhelmed, allowing them to gain experience based on what we've done in the past. It helps to have new, old, seasoned, Cat A's, NatComs, whatever it is, to kind of just spread out the crew and get a well-balanced one. We do have several people right now, not as many as Jim, going through the upgrade modules. I think we only have 3. And for those of you who are familiar with that, or maybe have folks in your area, we are tweaking that a little bit from the National Technical Commission side. We're looking into the road modules. We found a lot of redundancy and things like that, so we are kind of reviewing that, and we're also working on the track stuff. So we have a good start on the track modules. I think we're hoping to have those up without too long of a delay. So that stuff is coming as well. So one of the other things that we're responsible for is the post-event. So the way USA Cycling tells us, you can either be the chief ref, it could be the race director. From our side, it seems to work better from the chief ref that collects that money, fills out those forms, and sends that information in. We now have the luxury, which has been a really nice time saver for some of us, is to actually put that information in online. How many of you have actually done that? Okay, not too many. How many of you did not know that was available? Anybody? Okay, so then I guess I'd ask the question, if you know it's available, and is there a reason why you're not using that? I'm just kind of curious for myself. Is there any? I'm just kind of curious because the whole thing is to try to get paperless, and the speed of turning some of this around is really nice with that feature.
I don't think we've started because at a lot of races we still don't have the internet right there to fill it out, go over it with the race director, so we haven't started using it yet.
Okay, so that's a good comment, Cindy. One of the nice things about it, though, is that you're still tracking rider counts, right? You need that from your perspective. So I believe the spreadsheet, the officials invoice that DOT helped on or maybe put together in its entirety, has the ability to track that information right in there. So if you're using that, you could actually just print that little summary sheet off and show the race director what his fees were going to be. And I guess if you're going to write it manually, you're probably not going to want to do it online. But that's kind of the method I've been going to, is I just use that summary sheet. It gives them a summary of all their riders, talks about how many licenses were sold. I actually modified it just slightly for my use to add our local association fees in it, but it's just kind of a one-page thing. So that might be something that you guys could do. Deb, you have a question? Hold on. Where'd Tom go? Oh, he's coming. If you guys could just keep alternating sides of the room.
Thanks, Tom. The reason why we don't use it is the payment in cash or checks.
Okay, but so my response to that is, in fact, I just had this discussion with one of our officials here from Texas, is that you can still do it, the post-event online, and you submit it. So at that point, as the chief ref enters it, the race director will get a note. You're still responsible for sending in your license applications, right? And any occurrence reports. You can mail the check at that time. So you can still do it online, and when you send everything in, possibly send the check with it. And we've done that in our association as well. Cindy's shaking her head, yes. Okay, anybody else? Any other questions? Does that help? I mean, were you not aware that you could do that, Deb, or work?
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, it's not always something for everybody. Hey, Tom. Oh.
If you have a smartphone and you have service on the smartphone, I've done it on the smartphone.
Ooh, you're brave. Little screen, right? Okay. And I think we had another question over here.
I've done several of the events online on the form. It would be nice on that form if there was just a simple checkbox for the chief ref to fill in that all the payments going to be done by mail. So as you finish your report, you can just click, hey, I'm sending it in by mail, and that completes the form.
Tom's taking a note in his head to get that. That's a great comment. Yeah, because it could be misleading for the race director if they've given you a check and you enter it in, and then all of a sudden they get an email saying, hey, I'm waiting on this. And that's something maybe you can plan in advance and have that conversation with them, because not all of our race directors are aware of that yet. That's one of the things that I try to, when I assign our crew and send the information out to them, that's one of the things I have in the letter to them, that, hey, we do have this available. Hopefully in a few months we can get rid of that. But for people who aren't aware, this is available. Please talk to your race director about what option they'd like to use. Because I think somebody, not everybody wants to use their credit card on USA Cycling. They would prefer to give you cash, which is silly, or a check. So go ahead.
So, Bonnie, one question I had, and this is not necessarily for you, what's the situation with, if I am given a credit card, I'm still not allowed to input that payment information?
Okay, that's a great question, and I was under that same assumption myself. The LA representative, the LA person who represents your association to USA Cycling, so it's not necessarily the board. It's usually like one contact. They have the ability to go in there under their LA rules, and they can say who's allowed to make payment on this event. And so you can open it up to anybody, or what I tend to do is just open it up to whoever that chief ref is. Because we do have people that pay in cash, and so if I'm giving cash, I'm either sending a credit card or writing a check, right? So it'd be nice for me just to be able to go in at that time, put my credit card, and then it gets sent off. So that would be the person, if you have that situation, just talk to your LA rep, Stephen, and ask them if they could add you to that list. Then you can go ahead and pay. Any other questions on that? Okay. So one of the things, how many of you are actually assigners of officials in your area? Okay. So are all of you aware of how you can indicate who the chief referee is going to be for that event? Does everybody do that? Okay, so even though they're not using the online system, one of the things we've been talking about the last couple of days is if there's information about the race that USA Cycling wants to get to that chief ref, more times than not, they don't know who that is, right, until after the event, unless you fill out that information. So if you're not doing that, that would be a great way to go in and just put their license number in, make sure they're affiliated. Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay. So mentoring and evaluations, and I've already warned my folks in Texas not to, if I say something that they're not aware of, just to go with it. But I'll be perfectly honest. We're probably way behind the 8 ball on the formal mentoring and evaluation system that we're going to be talking about this weekend. Most of our mentoring comes in the shape of informal. Senior level official, we got a brand new person on the crew, they kind of take that person under their wing. So unlike Jim's organization and also Diane's and Nebra, they do have very formalized mentoring programs, which is great. I know Steve Stone has done a number of evaluations. Todd has done a number of evaluations at the regional level. I'm sure there's plenty more of you that have done that as well. So I don't have a whole lot to talk on that other than maybe next year I'll have some bullets under there for you. Okay, so for our recruitment process, it's really nothing formal. We always have at least one Category C officials clinic a year, and we kind of do it based on demand. So we sometimes, and also based on where the majority of those folks are living. So over the past several years, we've all done it, or we've had it done in Dallas, simply because that's where the majority of the people lived, and it's easier for them to get there. But so anywhere from 1 to 2 clinics. In January, we actually brought in 23 new officials, which was really good. Steve Cruz, for those of you who know him, he's a instructor by day, and he actually does our instruction for our Category C class. Awesome instructor. I sat in one of his classes one time, and I'm like, I am never teaching again. I mean, he does a really, really good job. But I did get a text message from him after I sent him the list of registration, and he's like, 23 people? Are you kidding me? So we did send someone to help him. But anyway, that was a really huge class for us. Like Jim says, they strive to get 10. If we have 10 to 12 that come in a year, that's really good for us as well. So this was an exceptional year. Most of them come, like I said, we don't really go out and look for people. Most of them come through us. Either Sean will get an email, he'll forward it to us of somebody wanting to take the class. or they're affiliated with a rider, so they contact us. We post on the website once it's been, the clinic has been scheduled. You know, we email our member clubs to let them know as well. So our apprentice days, what we try to do for our brand new officials, if we can, rather than just assigning them to a crew and throwing them into a race, hey, you got the Cat 5 men, good luck, we'll see you back here. We try to get them to be apprentices, and what that means is while they're part of the crew, it's at no expense really to the organizer. TexBra will actually pay their daily fees, and actually we do pay their mileage as well. So we don't give them just a subset, we just cover their daily fees and their mileage as an official, and it's something that the race organizer doesn't have to worry about. If we can, we try to put them into a car. Cindy, I know you've had that situation, I think last year with Christopher. They just sit and they observe what's going on, and it's a better way for them to learn. Do you guys do something like that in your area? Yeah? Okay, good. Okay, we also have an Official of the Year program. This is actually a picture of Joe Morgan, who won it this year. He's not with us this weekend, but I thought I'd take a picture and put him up there anyway. Not as formal as Jim's, although, Steve, I would like to talk to you about what you have in the program that you're using. And ours, like Jim said, normally we focus on the C's, the B's, and maybe brand new A's. So Joe just happened to be a brand new A last year, so not really working at the national level yet, but still working a lot of our events, and so we recognized him for that. And the other program we do, and all of the guys from Texas should know about this, but not all of you take advantage of it, is we do offer a license reimbursement program. So whatever the cost of your license is, after you've worked 5 events, and that doesn't mean like 5 events in a series, that's 5 uniquely permitted events, then we'll reimburse your fee as long as you get it to us by the end of that calendar year. So that's pretty good. Some people take advantage of it, but not many. And then our status, so we have 303 days of racing, or we did as of last year. In Texas, we're very fortunate because we have pretty good weather, and we're unfortunate because we have pretty good weather. So from an officiating standpoint, we don't really get a break. Our road season runs January through September. Cross picks up. Sometimes there's a little overlap. We're trying to eliminate that this year, but cross will run October through January, which is probably similar to most of you. And then we also have 2 tracks, so they'll run March through October. And we also have several weeknight series. We have 5 crit series and 2 cross series that go on, and I think we've actually denied 2 other weeknight series that we're trying to go on the same night, same city type thing. So a lot of weeknight series going on in Texas. And then just our stats on our officials. Keep thinking I'm going to trip over this cord. 89 licensed officials. I thought about rounding that up, but then I knew you guys would know I did that. It was just too perfect. 44 active, which I was quite amazed to see as I went through and actually counted them, because it sure doesn't seem like we have that many when we're making assignments and when we're working races. It's always pretty much the 5 of us in this room and a few others. So, but believe it or not, there are 44 active, 15 Cat A or higher, 11 Cat B, and we have 8 active motor refs that we use regularly for road races and crits.
One thing I want to point out, one other big difference between the regions, it's really unusual for our officials in Mabra to have to travel more than 100 miles. And that was not supposed to be funny. For an event where in Texas, getting somebody within 100 miles is really good. And to a lesser extent, because of the distribution, that's sort of true in New England also. I'm pretty familiar with Diane's program, so I'll try to go over it really quickly here. They do kind of regional little clinics, 2 or 3 Cat C clinics a year, and covering the number of states that they cover and that sort of thing. You can start to understand that. They post notices on the NEBRA website. They've managed to get more people to use the NEBRA website. Almost all of our communication with officials either happens by email or on their NEBRA website is actually is a regional website, not the officials sign-up website. So, and they're contacted by interested individuals. Chris Constantino actually created the website for Diane in New England and has branched out into lots of different areas. If you're not familiar with that website, we can show you what that is. And as an official assigner, if I didn't have that website, I wouldn't be assigning all the officials. I got to tell you, it's fantastic. So. And their crews are assigned the same way, looking at who needs module updates, who has the experience to do what needs to be done, and personality. Yes, having worked in New England, there are some personalities. New officials are encouraged to shadow other officials and that sort of thing. And they don't have any true apprentice program in place at this time, although Diane is actually thinking about that. And their post-event reports are the CR's responsibility, as they are in MABRA. I don't know of any of us that have used the online system. I personally like to have a piece of paper, but that's old guy stuff. So mentoring and evaluation. I don't have any good information on what she's doing on her mentoring program. I know she perhaps Kinnan or somebody else from New England can help with that. All right. So anyway, they do a license reimbursement program, and I thought it was for more than 5 races, but I don't have the actual number. So in other words, if you work a bunch of races, you get your license reimbursed. And recognition, they have the same thing. The official of the year, 86 active officials, or 86 licensed officials, 48 active, in about 600 official days a year. And you can see the numbers on their events. Their cyclocross season is pretty massive. And 25 officials work 75% of the races, and 12 work 50%. So, and there's the distribution of their officials. Major disciplines are road and cyclocross. They're kind of penalized because they don't have a track either. That's really big. And they have always had trouble maintaining a motor referee program. We're trying to help them with that, but they've had trouble getting the interest. Me, every time I turn around, somebody wants to, they get to be a Cat A official or Cat B official, and they've got to become a motor. So, it's a little bit different situation. I think the best thing to do now is to open up for questions, that if you've got questions on any one of these 3 programs, we'll try to answer it. As you can tell, we can't necessarily answer all of Diane's questions, but we can try. So,
Mike, go ahead with Mike first and come to Miriam.
For all the organizations and states that possibly have officials that they haven't talked to in a while because they're not on email, they're Luddites, they're curmudgeons, that don't have email, what do we do to attract those officials that are still not on email? If they want to be a part of the sling of the world that we're creating.
Well, I can answer that from our perspective. From Texas, every official that we have working actually has a valid email, or I have an email for them. So, Jim, I don't know if you have that situation or...
I know of some officials who are in that boat, but none of them are working for me. So it truly becomes, in today's digital age, it truly becomes a pain. And the official is not going to get as much experience and that sort of thing as if they were, and they just need to be made aware of that it's not hard to have an email account.
Well, and the other thing I'd ask is the official assigners here, I mean, do you have that problem? And if you do, how is it that you guys work around that? Okay.
Maybe you can, maybe you can't.
Is it on? Okay. So what's your question, Cindy, or what's your response?
We have some that are not on the webpage, and so I've actually put them in. You know, we go through and try to email. Not all of them have email. I try to make sure that all of the officials that want assignments can get back that information, and I will actually put them in because they're still in the UCA page for assignments, and help them also add their crew to assure that the entire crew gets credit for working those events. So I try to coordinate for those individuals that are not tech savvy.
So you add them to the officials' scheduling website, or how do you add them? Or you just assign them based on what they're interested in working?
Assigned as chief referee, but they don't go to that webpage, I will put them in as chief, and as they get their crew, maybe after the fact, once I know who all their crew is, they have not gotten that, because we still have it so that they get to have some say in who's on their crew. I will then go back and add them into that database.
Okay.
Sounds like you're having battery troubles with that microphone.
They're fresh batteries. Just a little bit of microphone etiquette. Hold it away from your face, and don't move your head too much. If you move your head, move the mic with your head. Nothing personal, Cindy, but everyone's doing it.
Now I'm really nervous. So it seems to me like a lot of people are inventing the same wheel here on at different LAs. Are there any plans for creating some metrics to see how successful these programs are in terms of retention, in terms of what you can do as a % of your LA budget, you know, what goes towards officials, et cetera, so that we're not all inventing, you know, 50 different wheels here?
Well, I know that that I look at those statistics as to who's coming back and that sort of thing. This Chris Constantino's site, the NEBRA site, actually helps us that we can, I can download at any time who's assigned and how many races they've been assigned to, and that sort of thing, and analyze that. As far as officials not coming back, in my case, most of them are officials who have moved out of the region and that sort of thing, and I'm informed that they're going away. I also survey the USAC database for officials who are licensed to them, whom I've never heard of, and I have people coming into the area and that sort of thing, and I send them an email and try to pick them up and that sort of thing. And one of the sources that you might not think about is people going through the mechanics clinics are actually licensed officials when they get done with the mechanics clinics. Not all of those people want to work as officials. Some of them do and can become very valuable assets to you and discover that that's a really cool thing to do too. And but you're never going to find out unless you reach out to them.
Thank you. Dee Dee, do you have?
Actually, with the exit interviewing and identifying issues is what was my question.
Correct. Well, it's the in talking to various and sundry people, I mean, it's the non-moving excuses a lot of times have to do with pregnancy or new baby in the family, lost my job, I can't have, I'm busy looking for a job, and these kinds of things that you understand, and you let them know that they're welcome to come back when they come back. And perhaps it's that they just don't want to work with Patton anymore, but they haven't told me that, so.
One of the things we found in Colorado is we lose a lot of people after first and second year. Lynn could give the exact metrics. But what programs do people have in place to try to retain officials after that first and second year?
Nothing.
Well,
no, I mean, truly we don't, and we do tend to lose officials. It's usually not the ones after, if they're committed to get through that first year, they usually come back. The ones that we tend to lose are those brand new officials that go through the class and they may come out and work like a 12-hour crit and decide, you know what, my I guess it used to be $50, say 70 now, really not what I thought this was going to be. And that's where we lose our people. So it's the ones that, they're coming out, they're either friends racing, family racing, kids racing, and so they like the idea of helping out, but they don't really want to be there all day, right? They want to come in and get out. So we don't really have an actual program in place for that, but I think that's something that would be really good, and maybe something that we could have a breakout on at our LA Summit this year, to see what some of the different practices that are being implemented and what's actually working. It's a good question, Tim.
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and my experience has been that some percentage of the people that take the Category C clinic never get to that on-the-job training thing. But I developed that on-the-job training where you're essentially extending the clinic out to a first race experience with a separate instructor, not trying to integrate the person who God, they're coming by fast. And that sort of thing. That so you're helping them get through that first scoring experience and that sort of thing by running this little separate crew. And one of the ways I came up with that idea was feedback from officials who hadn't stayed around past that first race or two experience, because I just don't feel like I'm part of the crew. Everybody else knows what's going on, and they didn't know what was going on. So I tried to create an environment where they understood what was going on. So when I put them in that apprentice role in their second race experience, they have a better chance of understanding and fitting in. And I also contact the crew, and I say, hey, Sarah's coming out for, this will be her apprentice race, and I need you to make sure that she's welcomed into the crew and given valid things to do. She's not just an extra person to occupy space under the tent, and that sort of thing. So reaching out to the crew and explaining this thing, I think has helped a little bit with that, but I don't have an answer for you got 8 new officials and 3 never respond to email again or anything else. I don't have any idea what to do with them other than the fact that USAC got their $35. So
one of the things I think is interesting when we look at different regions is the makeup of the crews and what your typical crew positions are. I know that your examples here, Mabra has a lot different setup of a typical race. I was wondering if you could go over that for those regions.
Well, that's a great question, because that was one of the things that I actually wanted to bring up. I was trying to see how much time we had left, but we talk a lot about how the different LAs assign officials, and there's a variety of methods out there. From my perspective, and then we'll ask Jim how he does it, we actually assign the full crew. And one of the reasons we do that is because we want to make sure, I've got 5 minutes, keep showing it, we want to make sure that the newer folks are getting integrated in. We're not building a crew strictly of the good old boys, everybody that's worked forever together. And we want to make sure that we're getting these newer folks the experience that they need. Newer chief refs, we make sure we have strong, officials that have been on the crew or been working for a while. And
yeah, what I was really trying to get at was like the positions at the race. I know there are more motors assigned per field in Mabra than in many other areas of the country, and I think that's an interesting thing to look at.
Well, since he's picking on Mabra, that's no problem. We have had a large number of motorcycles, probably because between Dave Miller and some of the other folks that we kind of created the entire motorcycle training program and that sort of thing. So that's been a principal thing in our area. Finding qualified drivers to drive officials around has, for some reason, always been a very big problem in our area. We're in a very high population density, and the really quiet little road race doesn't ever happen in our area. You've got an awful lot of traffic and that sort of thing. So it's been actually more convenient to assign motorcycles to fields than motorcycles and cars. Motor ref in a follow position always, occasionally a car leading. But and this is true in Pennsylvania too, pretty much. But our standard from starting about in the early 90s has been, if we're sending a field out on the road, there are going to be 2 officials with that field. That's it, 2 officials with the field. Our finish line is pretty constant at a chief judge and 2 helpers. I screwed up back in about 1990 in that the officials started operating a camera, so we never had the results services, the big guy groups and that sort of thing develop in our area, because our officials carry high-def cameras and everything else, and we operate the whole thing on a MacBook. And we've been doing that forever, so we don't have an option of having Joe Schmaltz or the big guy group or something else come in and help us. So the 2 officials, 2 assistant judges on the line, one of them is also a camera operator. An event gets really complex in a super hot criterium with 4 categories per wave and everything else, we'll throw an extra official out there for that.
Okay, Tom's given me the look, so I believe we're out of time. In closing, I'll just say from our perspective, we always go with having an official in the following the race first, and then we supplement with the motor. So sometimes we have a motor with the race, sometimes we don't. Thank you guys, appreciate your time. We'll be here all weekend if you have any more questions or want to see our rest of our hats.
I and all emails with questions are always welcome.